Hello, everyone. My name is Danny Giddis. I'm a life coach and organizational development trainer. And today I want to talk to you about a way that you can overcome your brain's automatic tendency to think negatively. It's what we call negativity bias. And what happens is your brain is looking out for ways to protect you. And so whenever something negative or scary shows up in front of you, your brain pays a lot of attention to it. It's a 5-to-1 ratio approximately of how many positive moments you need to have to overcome a negative moment. They say that that 5-to-1 ratio is the magical number in relationships, in interactions that you have with other people, the way that you experience a daily routine. If you have 5 positive moments for every negative moment, you're more likely to feel happy and have a positive outcome. What's happening in your brain is that because it wants to protect you, it sees this negative situation and really emphasizes it. It sticks in your memory. It makes you recognize that this negative thing is a threat that years ago would have been a potential life-threatening situation. But nowadays, it may be just that you're looking at the news or that you are criticized, and your brain still interprets that as, hey, I'm gonna die, or something crazy is gonna happen. But in reality, you may not be in a dire, life-threatening situation at that very moment. So it's important for us to keep that in perspective throughout the day so that we don't fall into these negativity traps and have a bad day just because our brain thinks that we're in mortal peril. So I'm going to teach you a very quick technique that you can use to challenge your thoughts and to make sure that you're not assuming that that negative situation is true, and just to recognize, hey, how is this affecting me in the moment? And then you can kind of turn your thoughts around, turn your situation around to be more positive just based on recognizing what's happening and just making that quick switch. And it's important to recognize this because knowing that we have a negativity bias, we know that we're more inclined to see things negatively. So then we have to challenge those situations and go, wait a second, is this really how I want to see this stuff? Is this really going to help me today? And before I do that, I just want to mention that research also shows that when you watch the news in the morning, and news tends to be negative, right? We tend to be alerted for all of the dangers in the world. That's what news is all about. It colors our day differently. So instead of watching the news first thing in the morning, put it off for a little while. You have a general idea of what's going on, right? But because of that negativity bias, your brain wants to go, okay, I got to check first thing in the morning and make sure the sky isn't falling. Okay, likely that the sky isn't falling. We can assume that that's true. We know how we have to protect ourselves and take the necessary precautions. But because we have to cope with this uncertain reality on a regular basis, it's best if we put that off for a little while, try and increase that positivity to negativity ratio at the beginning of the day, and set ourselves up for success throughout that day. That doesn't mean you ignore the world and stick your head in the sand, but we can set ourselves up for success by being a little bit more practical about it. So here is an exercise you can do to challenge your thoughts. Okay, it's called the ABC model. Basically, here it is. The ABC model goes like this. A stands for activating event. Activating event. B stands for belief or thought. And C stands for consequences. Consequences. So, every event is neutral, right? It doesn't hold a judgment. It's the interpretation that you have of a particular event that gives you a particular consequence. So let me give you an example. Somebody, let's say your spouse, you're stuck in quarantine, and your wife or husband says, hey, you need to clean the dishes. Okay, that's neutral. Let's just assume it's neutral, right? You don't have any control of how they said it, when they said it, the way they said it. You can just say it happened, right? And whether or not, they yelled or they whispered or they said it with a smile or a frown or whatever, that's besides the point, right? Your belief about the way that that was said is what's important. And that's how you can control your consequences, by changing the belief around that. So let's say that you believe that this event was an attack on you. You believe that your wife said that to you because they wanted to kind of annoy you and because they may not have your best interest at heart in that moment, or because they are unpleasant, right? Those are some very strong negative beliefs, right? And because we have a negativity bias, it's likely that we're going to assume those things. That's just natural. We're protecting ourselves. So we are likely to jump to those conclusions. So if for a second you're able to recognize that and go, wait a second, what are my thoughts? What are my beliefs about this moment? Then you can change your consequences. If you have that negative belief that somebody's kind of out to get you in that moment, your consequences are probably going to be a confrontation. They're probably going to be a continuation of that unpleasant situation. Hey, you need to do the dishes. Well, I believe this person's out to get me, so my consequences are I do something knee-jerk response and I start an argument. That's my consequence. Or if I were to challenge my belief in that moment, I'd go, wait a second, this person's not out to get me. We just need to do this as a team, and the dishes actually are dirty, and the other person's been doing the dishes all the time, and it's my turn to do the dishes, and that would be helpful for everybody. So that belief changes, and all of a sudden, you're like, oh, yeah, you're right. Thanks for reminding me. I'm going to go do the dishes now. And your consequence is something more harmonious throughout the day. Now, I understand this isn't the ultimate fix for everything, and this isn't going to make the virus go away, and we can't just bury our head in the sand. But what we do know is that when you're able to challenge your beliefs, you suddenly have choice. You have choice to turn something that could be negative into something positive. And every time we have that choice, we can begin to increase that ratio of negative to positive and ultimately make our day a little bit better. That doesn't mean that we're going to wipe out all of the negativity. It doesn't mean we need to overlook those who are suffering or ourselves, but it does mean that it gives us choice. So I hope that helps, and I wish you health and safety as you survive these very strange times.